Well, good evening, everyone, and welcome to the Burke County Board of Commissioners regular meeting for Tuesday, August the 18th, 2020 at 6 o'clock p.m. This time I will call us to order and welcome all of you here in this very unusual circumstance. It's good to see everybody masked up out there. Madam Clerk, I did the roll call. All the commissioners here, the county attorney is here, and the county manager is here. At this time, if you have devices with you that make any kind of noise, cell phones, etc., if you would please check those and turn those on silent for me, and we would appreciate it. If you are speaking tonight, please be sure that you come to the front podium, turn the microphone on until you see the red little light at the top of it, and we certainly would appreciate that. With us tonight to do our invocation is Jeff Lovett from the Morganton Church of God, and after Jeff does our invocation, our county attorney, Mr. J.R. Simpson, will lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance to our flag. So at this time, if you will stand with me and join Jeff as he gives our invocation. Jeff? Yes, sir.
If you will bow with me. Holy Father, we're thankful that you've allowed us to be here today, and it truly is strange circumstances that we've been in lately. We're very grateful, though, for our health. We're grateful for this beautiful day you've given us, and this wonderful community and city and county that does require business to be conducted, and we're thankful, Father, for each of those who represent this county on this board, and for those who have come here to represent their concerns, for those who are going to be honored tonight as well. We pray, Father, that you'll guide us, that you'll turn our hearts toward you through Jesus. And we thank you, Father, that we can be part of a community that works together as we do. And may we always, Father, be unified in that way. And we thank you for Jesus. It is in his name that we pray. Amen.
Amen.
Please join me in the pledge of the flag. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
You may be seated. Thank you, J.R. Thank you, Jeff. All right, gentlemen, this time we'll move on to item number 4, which is approval of the agenda.
Mr. Chairman, I make a motion to approve the agenda.
All right, gentlemen, you heard Commissioner's total motion. All in favor signify by raising the right hand. That is 5-0, Madam Clerk. We do have minutes in front of us tonight, 7 sets. One from February the 20th, one from February the 23rd. March the 3rd, March the 17th, the pre-agenda special on April the 7th, and April the 21st. I'll entertain a motion on those minutes.
Mr. Chairman, I had a motion, I had a question on that motion. The second meeting, and I can't get there fast tonight. The thing that I had a question about, Kay, was that you stated in there that I requested the contract for the lottery, with the school board lottery contract, and you stated toward the end of it that it was provided to me. Do you recall when and how that was provided? I don't recall getting it.
It was by email.
It was what?
By email, I believe. I'd have to look, but it's probably by email.
On the email? Okay, I will double check that.
Thank you.
And if I can't find it, I'll be in touch. Thank you. Make the motion that all 7 be, I believe it's 7, be approved as submitted.
All right, Jim, you've heard Commissioner Taylor's motion. All in favor signify by raising of the right hand. Madam Clerk, that'd be 5-0. Thank you so very much. This time we'll move into our presentations. We'll move to our Animal Services Center for our Pet of the Month, presented by Caitlin Settlemeyer, our Animal Services Director. Caitlin?
Hello, how is everyone? For our pet of the month, our dog this month is going to be Duncan. Duncan is a 1 to 2 year old pit bull mix. He's absolutely wonderful. He loves everybody. He's never met a stranger. As you can tell, he probably wants to jump in everybody's lap right now. Duncan got to participate in our Dog's Day Out program today, so he went on a 2-hour walk and then got to go to Chick-fil-A. So he really enjoyed that, but this guy's going to make someone a wonderful family pet. Like I said, he gets along well with other dogs. He probably needs a fairly active family, as you can imagine. But this guy is absolutely great. He's actually our longest resident at the shelter right now, and he gets a little pent up in his head. So for anybody interested in taking Duncan out on a walk, you don't have to adopt him, but if you want to come by, we can go over our Dog's Day Out program. It's a really cool program we have. So Duncan, of course, would enjoy it, but we're also looking for a forever home for him. Is there anything else for Duncan?
He's a really great car rider. He rode in my car on the way here, and he sat in the passenger seat. He's a true co-pilot. So he's just really awesome. He's a fun dog, and he would be a blast to have around.
Good job, Duncan. We also have a cat that we are presenting this month. Our cat this month is going to be Miss Jessie. Jessie's been with us quite a while. Whenever she came in, she was skinny. She didn't look the thriftiest. So she has really blossomed, and she has such a great personality. So she's about a year old. Jessie has been spayed. And she would also make a really wonderful pet. She gets along well with cats, dogs, and she's very playful. So if you do come and visit the shelter, she will try to grab you through the kennel. We don't understand why she's been with us for so long. I guess she's just kind of been overlooked, but she would love to go home with someone if anybody's looking to adopt a cat or a kitten in the near future. Right now we are running a special event thanks to our county manager. It's called Catterday. So we are overloaded with an abundance of cats and kittens right now. So every Saturday this month, through the month of August, our adult cats over 6 months of age are $25, and our kittens are $45. That includes all of their bedding, spay, neuter, vaccinations, flea control, deworming, and all the works. So you can find yourself a great feline companion. We're always looking for fosters and adopters, so you can check out our contact information if anybody's interested in fostering for us, participating in our Dog's Day Out program. We have a little mascot here for that, so that's what we have.
All right, thank you so much, and thank you, Duncan. He's not
You're
gonna listen.
welcome. Good job, Duncan.
All right, this time if I could turn your attention to the screen, we're going to see a video from Reason.
Hello, I'm Brian Steen, the Burke County Manager, and I'd like to introduce you to Zeke, Ty, and Chloe. They're my 3 pets, and I adopted them all from rescue agencies. I hope if you're thinking about getting a dog or a cat, you'll consider contacting our local rescue agencies and adopt one. If you have a cat or a dog, I hope you'll also consider having them spay or neutered to help us reduce the number of unwanted pets in Burke County. Whatever you can do to help us would be appreciated. And in a moment, we'll show you some contact information for both the rescue agencies in Burke County and agencies that can help you with low-cost spay and neuter. Thank you again. I hope you have a great day. Wolf. Thank you.
Thank you, Brian, for you and your family doing that for us. We do appreciate that. And again, folks, we encourage you as citizens to adopt an animal from the Burke County Animal Services Center. All right, this time, gentlemen, we'll move on to item number 2 as a proclamation acknowledging ratification of the 19th Amendment to the United States Constitution, and that will be presented by Dot Williams with the League of Women Voters. Dot, come on up to the front here to the podium, you and whomever. Introduce your guest if you would.
I will. This is Deb McGivern, who is president of our local league, the League of Women Voters of Catawba Valley. And she has a gift for each of you, and I'll explain
Hard to follow
why.
a dog.
Just a second. Oh, I'm fogging up my glasses. Excuse me. We especially appreciate our bringing our request regarding the 19th Amendment to you this evening, as this is the very day, August 18th, 100 years ago, that the Tennessee legislature became the 36th state to ratify the amendment to the U.S. Constitution. And that ratification pushed it into law. So 100 years ago today. Attaining this goal was no small feat, nor did all women support it. It was a very bitter struggle if you've ever read anything about it. There were energetic and determined women on both sides of the question, and legislators were assailed on many occasions with convincing arguments about how they should vote on this issue. To simplify identifying the supporters and opponents, supporters of the amendment were presented a yellow rose by the suffragists, while opponents of it were given a red rose by the antis. And it's indeed a pleasure to present you with a yellow rose to commemorate this auspicious day. Before I read the proclamation, I'd like to tell you just a little bit about the League, because as far as I have been able to determine, we've never had a local league in Burke County, so it's not well known. I am part of the League of Women Voters of Catawba Valley, and Burke County is included in that, with Alexander, Caldwell, and Catawba counties, often referred to as the Unifor. The Catawba Valley League of Women Voters operates under the auspices of the League of Women Voters of North Carolina, which is part of a national network, the League of Women Voters US, and it's kind of tiered like the government. The League encourages informed and active participation in our democracy and influences public policy through advocacy and organizing. Our vision was formed 100 years ago by leaders of the women's suffrage movement, and today we remain a strong, nonpartisan, activist, grassroots organization that believes voters should play a critical role in democracy. Presently, we're promoting two important efforts in this 100-year-old vision of informed and active voter participation, which are, one, nationally, and you may or may not be familiar with vote411.org, and two, locally, making a voting plan. Vote411.org is a website developed by the League of Women Voters that helps voters compare candidates' positions on issues and more. It's, we do, excuse me, my mask is not helping. We, at each election, whether it's national, state, or county, or municipal, and the different years, we send invitations to all candidates in an election, asking them to participate on the website by responding to specific questions specific to the office for which they are running. We do this by email, and so we have to gather all those email addresses each time. And when the candidate responds to the questions, but also can set up a link to his or her website, her own website, has a photo and contact information and different information that's helpful to the voter. Voters, when they go to 411.org, will be able, you put in your address, and then you can find your specific ballot for the offices you will be voting for in the upcoming election, and look at the different candidates and go back and forth. You can also check your voter registration if it's up to date and that sort of thing. I believe the site is about to go live for this upcoming election in a week or so, shortly. And so we begin to advertise at that moment so people can respond. The service is free to candidates and voters. The candidates enter their own information and positions. Nothing is edited by the league. Of course, the effectiveness of the site is greatly enhanced when the greatest number of candidates participate, and most do. Some candidates, though, choose not to, and voters are denied the opportunity to learn more about the benefits they propose for the office they seek. Locally, this is a national program, and different states, have it for their candidates, and we have it. We've had it in this area, I think, for 4 or 5 years. Locally, the League of Women Voters has produced a flyer, and we have hard copy and digital copy of something called making a voting plan for each person. And what it has on it is information on where to go to vote if you go, how to do your absentee vote, and it has links to the local election office as well as the North Carolina office. And I have handouts on these if anyone should like to have some. Our local league is small, and we have spent most of our efforts in recent years in voter education and participation. There are many other public policy studies and advocacy work in which we participate. And tonight, on this 100th anniversary, is one of those. And it has brought us great joy in 2020, and that is the proclamation that I will read for you now. Proclamation acknowledging the ratification of the 19th Amendment to the United States Constitution, the 100th anniversary of women's right to vote, and the founding of the League of Women Voters. Whereas an organized movement to enfranchise women began in July 1848 at a convention in Seneca Falls, New York. Whereas, through the efforts of brave and courageous women referred to as suffragists, who sacrificed family, their personal life, and their financial resources for over 70 years to gain equal rights for women, especially the right to vote. Whereas women and men, black and white, supported the women's suffrage movement for women to gain the constitutional right of having a voice in making the laws that govern them. Whereas the women's suffrage movement led to the passage of the 19th Amendment to the Constitution of the United States in 1919, with ratification by the states by the summer of 1920. Whereas the National Woman Suffrage Association dissolved in 1920 to create the League of Women Voters of the United States to register voters and educate all voters. Whereas the League of Women Voters of North Carolina was launched on October 7, 1920, on the steps of the Guilford County Courthouse by Gertrude Whale, a politically active and tireless young woman from Goldsboro, North Carolina. Whereas more than 120,000 women were registered to vote in North Carolina by 1920. Whereas women today constitute a majority vote in our state and the U.S. and are running for office in higher numbers and are more active in the election process than ever before in our history. Be it proclaimed that the 100th anniversary of women gaining the right to vote and the founding of the League of Women Voters in the United States and in North Carolina. Further, the League is recognized for the impact these historic accomplishments have on citizen engagement and the civic life of the community, the state, and the nation. Thank you.
Thank you, Dot. Gentlemen, you've heard the proclamation. Does anybody have any questions or comments for Dot?
I got lots more material. No.
All right, any questions or comments? All right, if not, the chair will entertain a motion.
Mr. Chairman, I make the motion to approve proclamation number 2020-05.
All right, gentlemen, you've heard Commissioner Taylor's motion. All in favor signify by raising the right hand. That is proclaimed at 5-0. Dot, I will sign that document, and you will get a copy of it shortly. Okay?
Thank you so much.
Thank you so very much. All right. Moving down to item number 3, it is with great pleasure that we now will do a proclamation honoring Dorothy Kincaid Hawkins. This would be the mother of our dear friend and former chair of this board, the Honorable Bruce Hawkins, who is with us this afternoon or this evening. This time, I would like to recognize the vice chair for this momentous occasion. Mr. Vice Chair.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I am honored to read this proclamation here tonight. The proclamation celebrating...
If it's okay with you, I'm going to ask Bruce, if you'll come up, Bruce, and y'all stand 7 feet apart up here.
Are you reading up there?
Yes, sir.
Okay.
If you would read it out front, this is special for us, and I think we can do that and stay socially distanced here.
Won't grab my glasses again. These masks, they tend to fog up, so be patient with me. This proclamation celebrating Burke County resident Dorothy Kincaid Hawkins on the occasion of her 100th birthday. Whereas Mrs. Dorothy Kincaid Hawkins, a lifelong resident of Burke County, will celebrate her 100th birthday on August 28, 2020. And whereas Mrs. Dorothy Hawkins was born in Burke County on August 28, 1920, to proud parents William and Essie Kincaid, and she is one of 10 children. And whereas in 1936 she married Alonzo Edward Hawkins, now deceased, and they were happily married for 46 years. Mrs. Hawkins was a devoted wife, and together they raised 7 sons. And whereas Mrs. Hawkins has 27 grandchildren and numerous great-grandchildren and great-great-grandchildren, Mrs. Hawkins is a dedicated mother and grandmother. And whereas in addition to being an excellent parent and homemaker, Mrs. Hawkins worked outside the home. During her career, she was employed as a domestic worker in Valdez until she took a job at Burke Yarns, a local textile manufacturing company, where she worked until retirement. And whereas one of her favorite hobbies was canning fruits and vegetables from the family's garden, she spent hours in the kitchen preserving delicious and nutritious food to feed her family during the winter months. And whereas Mrs. Hawkins is a woman of great faith who loves her church family at Mount Zion Baptist Church, and her faith remains an important part of her life. And whereas in April of 2019, Mrs. Hawkins became a resident of College Pines Health and Rehabilitation Center because of an injury, and this is where she calls her home now. And whereas the Burke County Board of Commissioners hopes Mrs. Hawkins is blessed with good health and happiness throughout her 100th year and beyond. And as Mrs. Hawkins reflects upon a century of memories and accomplishments, we hope she is filled with joy and optimism. Now therefore be it proclaimed that the Burke County Board of Commissioners does hereby recognize and congratulate Mrs. Hawkins upon the celebration of her 100th birthday, and it extends its best wishes to her, wishing her continued health and happiness. Now therefore be it further proclaimed that the Burke County Board of Commissioners do hereby deem it an honor and privilege to declare Friday, August 28, 2020 as Dorothy Hawkins Day in Burke County in special recognition of her 100th birthday. Proclaim this 18th day, August 2020.
Bruce, let's get a picture, and then I'd like for you to say a word if you would.
I certainly appreciate the Board of Commissioners approving this proclamation for my mother. Certainly it is a great lady. We treat in here tonight to receive this, but because of the COVID-19 pandemic and being in the nursing home, she was unable to do so. But she sent her thanks to this board for
Thank you, Bruce, for you and your mother and your family and all that you have done for Burke County. You will be a friend forever. Thank you, sir.
Be sure you tell that young lady we said good luck and we hope to celebrate the achievement of her birthday. It's not here, but there.
All right, gentlemen, we'll move on now to item number 7 on the agenda will be our scheduled public hearings. Oh, pardon me. Let's go back and make a motion. I got so excited on what I was doing there. Let's do a motion to approve that proclamation.
Mr. Chairman, I move to approve proclamation number 2020-04.
All right, you've heard the Vice Chair's motion. All in favor signify by raising the right hand. Madam Clerk, that'll be 5-0. Thank you, Mr. Vice Chair. Now we'll move on to scheduled public hearings. The first one being from the Animal Advisory Board, ordinance amending Chapter 6 of the Animals County Code, along with a public hearing. That will be presented by Debbie Hawkins, the chair of AAB, with help from Gwen Stevens, the vice chair. So, Debbie, I think you're going to start.
On behalf of the Burke County Animal Advisory Board, thank you for the opportunity to present our recommendations for implementing changes necessary to keep the Burke County Animal Ordinance up to date. Last year, Mike Bernard of Shelter Planners of America completed a needs assessment for Burke County's animal services. In this report, it was determined that the number of animals impounded at animal shelters serving Burke County was higher than the national average, and that corrective measures should be implemented to ensure the prevention of future pet overpopulation that challenges our county. The course of action recommended by shelter planners was to implement 3 things: sterilization, education, and legislation. The advisory board began working on ordinance changes in October of 2019. Over the past 9 months, we have sought input from the public, from responsible breeders in our county, from rescue and animal welfare groups. Our meetings have been open to the public, and we have valued the input from the public in drafting our recommendations. We have researched what other counties have enacted. The advisory board made the decision to meet more than what was required, which is quarterly, because we recognize the amount of work required in order to produce an ordinance that was built on educating the public about best practice in animal care. Our recommendations are a bare minimum standard. They are by no means groundbreaking. There are many counties and towns in North Carolina that have enacted and enforced animal ordinances that require spay and neuter, pet registration, and mandatory microchipping. These types of mandatory rules can be cumbersome and costly, both in time and money, and compliance typically falls on the responsible pet owner. The Burke County Animal Advisory Board recognized this and created a proposal to target the irresponsible pet owners and the uncontrolled breeding of animals. The Animal Advisory Board recommendations are based on best practice in the field of animal welfare and what is required to continue our county's advancement. Our recommendations include transferring authority of animal services from the Sheriff's Department to the county manager, expanding the definitions of animal care for pet owners, explaining clearly what is required when owning or keeping a pet, defining what is safe and humane if you tether or chain your animal because you don't have a fenced-in yard, defining what is adequate food, shelter, and water so that your animal doesn't have to eat food that is set out for days, can't get to their doghouse to get out of the blistering sun, or has to drink green slimy water because that's all they have. This is not about the rights of the pet owner. It is about the supervision and safety of and for all animals. Our current ordinance already prohibits animals running at large. Even though these animals can be impounded, it does not prevent litters created by those unaltered animals whose owners allow them to run loose and unsupervised prior to being impounded. The advisory board's recommended ordinance will hold these individual owners accountable as they are our specific problem: uncontrolled breeding and unwanted litters. Our recommendations also include requiring a breeder permit for those who allow their animals to have litters. This protects the welfare of the animals, the consumers who buy these puppies and kittens, and it legitimizes those approved breeders who adhere to professional breeding standards. Taxpayers, voting citizens, and animal welfare groups continue to spend hundreds of thousands of dollars supporting the animals who are unwanted in Burke County. The unwanted byproducts and offspring are the direct result of irresponsible pet owners that bear no brunt or repercussions for the resultant offspring. The sufferage these animals endure through neglect, abandonment, starvation, uncontrolled litters, succumbing to disease, and human indifference are unimaginable. When those who care are working harder and paying more than those who are making irresponsible choices, it's time to enact legislation that targets the problem. Your advisory board is made up of a rescue representative, pet owners, health department staff, a licensed veterinarian, and a law enforcement officer. We were appointed by you and assigned the task of advising you on matters related to animal services and on the animal ordinance that provides regulations for animal ownership. Our ordinance recommendations are a collaborative effort with input from animal welfare groups, reputable breeders in our community, and in consultation with the Director of Animal Services and the Director of the Health Department. We collectively reviewed, edited, I might say edited, and unanimously approved these, which I might add as a first. Our hope for this ordinance is that it protects the animals from exploitation, provides education for pet caregivers on what is best practice, and puts in place parameters to guide owners on what is acceptable in our county. Our Animal Services Center advocates for public education, and that is key to this ordinance. Although we have recommended fines for specific violations, we've also built an opportunity to teach citizens on what is expected. The taxpayers are tired of paying the price for irresponsibility and tired of the animals making the ultimate sacrifice. They're asking for change, and this ordinance is that change. Thank you for this opportunity. I'd like to ask Caitlin Settlemeyer, Director of Animal Services, to speak to the status of animal services.
Thanks, Debbie, and thanks for looking into all these revisions and considering them. So I'm here to kind of bring light to the animal shelter. It's easy for us to sit here as pet owners and look at this ordinance and say, how does this affect me? How does this affect, how I go about my daily operations with my pets? So I'm here to shed light on these animals that are in the shelter that have no owner. We are their voice. So since January of 2018, so roughly 2.5 years ago, we've taken in 6,208 animals. Of that, 3,442 of those were cats and 2,766 of those were dogs. Since then, 2,387 of those cats were euthanized and 885 dogs were euthanized. So that's 53%. I'm sorry, I can't breathe in this thing. That's 53% of the animals brought into our care over the past 2 years lost their lives. Not to mention the amount of money that was spent annually to care for these unwanted pets. This is largely due to a lack of spay-neuter and animals being at large with no identification to be able to help reunite them with their owners. So North Carolina ranks as the third state in the country for having the highest euthanasia rate, Burke County being one of those counties that has one of the highest euthanasia rates. Right now we have a really unique opportunity to be able to set an example for the rest of the state to follow suit. My staff and I have been with Animal Services a little over a year now. We've worked very hard to create opportunities for the animals in our care, but we still fall short on a daily basis because there's simply not enough homes for all the unwanted animals. So in our time working within the field, there's not much that we haven't seen come into our shelter. So a lot of these recommendations may seem drastic for the general public, but until you've truly sat in the shelter with that emaciated puppy who has been eating mud for the last week because it's starving, and then it's, it has pretty much given up on life. Or, we've had several dogs come into our care who've sustained gunshot wounds just for being at large. They didn't ask for that. They didn't ask to be there. But we sit with them and we hold them until, their last breath. That is our last gift we can give them, is to be able to take that pain away. So these animals, like I said, have never asked for that, and we have an opportunity to work to make sure no animals have to go through this suffering. So I hope with these recommendations you can see that we recognize the responsible pet owners out there, and we want to bring others up to those same standards of care. That's our whole objective. So once again, thank you for your time and consideration on this revision.
Thank you, Caitlin. Gwen, are you going to speak?
Yeah, I will. I'll speak to something here. I know it's a really controversial situation we're in, but we do want our commissioners to know that what you've entrusted to us, we've worked hard. But not just our working hard. We've had folks like the veterinarians. They gave us professional input on what it took for breeders to be responsible breeders, for those who can stand in the gap for the dogs that really deserve to be purebred. We didn't just go anywhere to find, the answers. We went to the professionals, and there was no stone left unturned. So I would implore you to consider what we've done in this last year, that it's not been for any group. What we're doing, we're not doing for a small group. But this is for every animal that has been in Burke County and will be in Burke County. They can trust us. That's all I have to say.
Thank you, Gwen. All right, gentlemen, any questions for Debbie or Caitlin or Gwen? Anything?
Mr. Chairman, I have several comments, questions. I think that it's hard to look at this and not try to bring up some points, and at the same time know that this program that they provided, the rules and ordinance, is somewhere in the 93 to 95 percentile good and healthy. And for that, I compliment them on. We have talked on the phone, 2 or 3, not on the phone, but exchanged emails several times over the last week. A couple of questions I had that I'd like to get a little clarification on, and the first one is on page 114, where we talk about appropriately trained and authorized investigator and so forth. And my question to that is, how close is that, or how does that relate to the same thing that a sheriff deputy would go in somebody's yard and investigate the dog situation?
Debbie, come on back to the podium if you would, and then we'll narrow that down. Is that on their page 114 or ours?
It's on the information I got, and I understand these things have changed 3 or 4 times.
Oh, yeah, that's pretty amazing.
You may not have it, and of course,
Do you know what section it's in?
Page 14 of the ordinance.
Animal
Page
Services Enforcement Officer.
Oh. Okay, Caitlin,
Let's
you're up.
see.
Section 6.3B.
It's definitions, it's into the definitions.
Let me see where you are. Here, you hold this. What are you looking at? Is it on your tablet?
Well, on the package, it's page 5.
Page 5.
Yeah.
No, he's saying page 5, it's in definitions.
Yeah, that's correct, it's on page 5.
Okay, you talking about Animal Services Enforcement Officer?
Animal Service Enforcement Officer is correct.
Okay.
Can you repeat your question again, Mayor? Do you care to repeat your question?
I just wanted to know, this is about y'all, this is not about me or the dogs, it's how well trained are we gonna be so that you don't get hurt when you go out there?
Oh,
It's,
how well trained are your animal enforcement officers going to be?
We are working very hard to incorporate a field training manual. So we're hopefully going to hire them on very soon. They're going to go through a field training session of up to 4 to 5 weeks before they're released. So we hope to have these guys trained very well.
Will it be one of you who go out, or are we going to have?
No. No.
Who will it be?
We have 2 officers and we have a supervisor who's actually here with us today. So he'll be the one doing the training. That's Pete Aldridge. He is our Animal Services Enforcement Supervisor. And we're getting our policies and procedures in place.
Yep. All right. The other one, I think the next question is on page 115, the next page. It deals with I think the last sentence. Let's see, wait a minute. Reproduction, it deals with reproduction, and I'm trying to get a feel for how much to have an understanding, if you will. Well, I believe they've changed, I don't see it in here. I'll have to go with mine. But it talks about not permitted, and not permitted should change to, in my opinion, of not considering not considered to be a healthy breeder practice. It's when you think of no breeding or not some of the things that people go through that have animals, and you say not permitted when it's maybe out of your control, and I think we're talking about as much of the language here as anything else, and that's the reason that you consider a better wording of that would probably improve the understanding about reproduction. Reproduction is a God thing. We didn't create it. God created reproduction. And if an animal gets out for whatever reason, and I know we're not supposed to let them out, but they get out. I got cows. They get out. They haven't got out in a long time, knock on wood. But occasionally they get out, and you have to deal with it, the circumstances of it. And that's one place. And the next place I wanted to talk about a little bit was page 126. And it's about tethering. And I am almost positive that that is a term that needs to be readdressed with your rules.
In what way?
My dad had horses, and I was about 9 years old. He didn't have his barn completed, and the guys keeping them had to have the space. We tethered horses for more than a month. day and night. Tethering helps you train an animal, and especially a dog. It's important to be able to tether them. About any dog that I know of begins its training being tethered and taught by that means. I agree with the words that you have and some of the instructions. You don't tie dogs to moving objects, period. You don't tie a dog to a car. It's not a healthy situation. I think that's enough on that. One other comment I did want to make was we got a letter late this evening. I got it after 4:30 p.m. today, and it came from the American Kennel Association. And he says something. He said some things in here that I said at our pre-agenda, and it talks about a breeder permit and tethering in his article. And all I am doing is drawing that to your attention and hope you'll pick it up and pay attention to it. For he says, as currently written, that the ordinance will at point time prove costly and difficult to enforce. And that's one of the things I said 2 weeks ago. And I'm trying to help y'all to get it simple so it doesn't work you to death and you spend a lot of money in it. On page 135, I wanted to put a big okay on that. I like the opportunity for individuals that they have an opportunity to tell their story if somebody has got it wrong, but they have an appeal process. And I appreciate that. On page 153, you again talk about fines. If you recall during pre-agenda, I used the sample of drunk driving, and yes, you get caught 4 or 5 times drunk driving until you get up to $500 fine. The first one stage is $200, and I believe those fines should be revisited. 165. I want to talk a little bit about animal cruelty, and not that should not be addressed, but the way it is worded, it is a little bit confusing, and it just went away again. But it says it will not be allowed. And the next 2 or 3 sentences down, you go to telling what's accepted when you cruelty is involved. So I think that it's a conflict of statement. Hold on a second, I may have confused you right then. Computer is having difficulty following my lead. Animal cruelty is part of the tethering, and that's where we have a conflict of. It did it again. I don't know what's wrong with it. It goes to the page and immediately goes somewhere else. It ain't gonna work. But I did a tally on the calls, not on the calls, but on the internet that I got today, about this policy, and I counted 18. There's 3 or 4 of them duplicated, and I did not count those. Two of them came from the same place, but they were different people, so I counted those 2. There was 14 for. There was a total of 14 and 8 against, and some of those strongly oppressed. And 3 more came in after 4 p.m. 1 was for, and 2 was against. So you had 8 against, 8 for, and 14 against. And that's wrong too. Excuse me, let me. 6 for and 8 against, and then the other 3, 6 and 8, 14, 3, 17 overall. And again, 6 for and 8 against, and then 1 more for and 2 against. One of the writers wrote, and one of the things, a much better word than I have, so this word is borrowed. And her complaint was that she felt like this article could be written much better with non-infringing attitudes and opinions. But I report to you again, we're not in no way belittling or taking away from y'all's document. It's a lot of work. Y'all did a lot of work. And the one thing that I would like you to remember as you look, and if you're going to do a little more tweaking, that something in your policy could be only 5% wrong, but it creates 50% impact, or 50% of your time to deal with it, when we really ought to get it right on the first end of it. But out of how many words and how many pages, I don't know, but that's a very few items, and all of them, all but 2 of them, were mentioned in my earlier pre-agenda comments 2 weeks ago. And I appreciate you listening. Thank you for your effort.
Thank you, Commissioner Taylor. Any other comments or questions for staff? All right, if not, at this time, Madam Clerk, I will open the public hearing. Has anybody signed up to speak at the public hearing?
Yes, Mr. Chairman, I have a number of comments to read, but we also have some citizens in attendance who would like to speak in person, and I would call up to the podium Mr. Eddie Zimmerman.
Mr. Eddie Zimmerman.
Thank you for letting me come tonight and speak my word. I appreciate you guys, and very honorable to the county, Burke County. I'm a lifetime resident. I've had dogs for 72 years. I've got a professional dog kennel that I breed and train. I've actually judged dog shows on the state and national level. AKC asked me to come here tonight and representing of them to oppose this amendment. And it's not, as Mr. Taylor has said, to delay this thing till it can be tweaked and things. I think actually the one I've really, as a conscious breeder, I breed probably a litter a year, and I've had national champions and state champions. Like I say, I've trained professionally, and I think 6-79 should be totally eliminated. Thank you for your time.
Thank you, Eddie. Madam Clerk?
Miss Gwen Hood.
Gwen?
Hello, it's great to see everybody. I'm just going to read what I'd sent. Dear County Commissioners, County Manager Brian Steen, and Madam Secretary, I am writing this letter in support and to recommend all the revisions of the County Animal Ordinance as proposed and presented by the Animal Advisory Board. In particular, I support the changes regarding breeders, backyard breeders, tethering, cat colonies, and measures to promote spay and neutering of unaltered animals. These revisions will help to further the positive changes we have already seen to promote animal welfare and protection in our county. I am so proud of our county and all the work that continues to be done, which inches us ever closer to becoming a no-kill county. The focus for compassion and humane treatment is an achievement many have endeavored to see as a reality and not just words in our county. This joint effort is such a worthy cause. I applaud our county manager and county commissioners for their dedication and commitment. I also want to thank the Animal Advisory Board for making these revisions a priority and the excellent positive work they are doing. These revisions will improve the existing county animal ordinance and enhance our county's vision for animal welfare and protection. And I would like to add that these efforts show a genuine priority to the needs of the animals. It is not about the convenience of pet owners and the breeders, but it is to protect and sustain a true atmosphere and environment of welfare and protection for the animals in our county. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Gwen. Madam Clerk?
Miss Felicia Craig.
Ms. Craig?
How are you gentlemen doing?
Thank you.
I'm not normally a speaker, but I was asked here by multiple people that can't be here today due to their age or their immune system. They couldn't come out. I'm a representative of the American Working Dog Alliance, and I'm also a breeder at a show, and I'm also a judge. I have a short thing to read that I was asked to read, and then I would like to say my own. I'm here speaking for a group of concerned responsible pet owners and as a representative of the North Carolina Working Dog Association. We are opposed to the new ordinances and ordinances proposed. The overreach in the proposed ordinances is appalling, and the abuse and neglect is already appropriately described in both state and federal laws. Enforce what is there. To continually seek to create and pass these regulations that are redundant is a waste of the taxpayers' dollars that could be spent to create low-cost spay and neuter clinics, and to set up a clinic for folks that need discounted veterinary care, as well as educational programs for our community, as well as the Animal Control Services needs a new shelter built. This time and effort should be put to use for fundraising and education. We, the people, are concerned with the fact that one person, the director, will be responsible to carry out and apply these rules. We would respectfully ask to have the educational materials of the classes and who taught these classes be made public information. Responsible breeders are not your problem. Law-abiding citizens don't break the law. Criminals don't care about the law. But that is who this is focused on. As we have knowledge and information that some of these courses are being taught have incorrect and misleading information and being inappropriately taught about many of these subjects, which brings up the concern of selective enforcement. There are several civil and property rights that are being violated with this proposed ordinance. This whole ordinance, the whole ordinance language is broad, vaguely written, and too open for interpretation. We ask that this be tabled so the county citizens who will be affected can properly be notified and have the opportunity to voice suggestions and concerns. Thank you for your time.
Thank you, Ms. Craig. Thank you. Madam Clerk?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. That's all the in-person cards I have. I will go ahead and read the comments that we received by email.
Thank you, ma'am.
Ma'am, I had asked to speak, please.
Your name?
Denise Smith.
I'm sorry, I don't have a card for you, Miss Smith, but
I
you're
spoke
what?
with the gentleman about speaking. I spoke with the gentleman
Come on, ma'am.
You can call.
Step up. There you go. I can take care of this one.
Okay. My name is Denny Smith. I've lived in this county for probably close to 30 years. I was here with the 2018 ordinance that y'all proposed and put into order. I would like to say that no, there was not a lot of people. I first heard about this on Monday. AKC didn't know about it, UKC didn't know about it. Various other groups did not know, and I contacted breeders in the area. They were unaware. So I would ask you to table this and allow us a chance. I've had one day to look at this. It is vaguely written. You are basically putting mandatory spay and neuter, which that's not proper. And again, you are going against people who are law-abiding. Now, if you would spend it on education, low-cost spay and neuter, a clinic for people, for elderly and those who cannot afford, I would support, because I do know the previous animal control situation. So I applaud you ladies for what you have done, but I would respectfully ask for y'all to allow the public, because I see no hunters here. I am very glad that Mr. Zimmerman showed up, because AKC was totally unaware. The cavalry group is also now aware. I would ask that you allow us to have some other people that also have a lot of animal experience to look at it and make suggestions. You have federal and state animal laws on the books. Rewriting them here does not solve our problem. Education and helping the community will solve this problem. So, I thank you, and I hope you do take that to mind.
Thank you, Denise. All right, Madam Clerk.
Okay. This first comment is from Emily Elder, and she writes, as an animal-loving citizen of Burke County, I am writing to voice my expectation, hope, and confidence that my county commissioners will, without hesitation, endorse the revised animal ordinance as presented. Revisions have been vetted by many animal rescue experts, those that deal with this on a daily basis and that understand the need for more humane laws to support their work. Burke County has made huge progress towards compassionate and humane treatment of animals, thanks in part to the work of the commissioners, and I want to ensure that this continues. In order to do so, we need ordinances that are just, robust, and fair. As presented today, the animal ordinance will keep Burke County moving in the right direction, and she is from Morganton. Next, we have Deidre Green, and she writes, I encourage you and want to express my support for the proposed animal ordinance of 2020. This ordinance contains some exceptional qualities to move Burke County in the right direction. Specifically, I support the addition of the unaltered reclaim fee schedule and the breeder permit. Without these two additions, we will continue to have the large volumes of litters produced in this county, and we will be forced to kill innocent animals for space and because they are unwanted. For the sake of the animals and the taxpayers, please approve this ordinance. These changes are way overdue in this county. Sincerely, Deidre Green of Morganton. This is, Wynn read hers herself. Wynn, do I need to repeat yours? Okay. Wynn spoke. She's on the Animal Advisory Board. She spoke earlier. This is from Kathy Yarnell of Conley Springs, and she writes, I want to express my support for the proposed animal ordinance of 2020. Burke County needs to get the problem of unregulated animal breeding under control, and I believe this ordinance is crucial in that purpose. Specifically, I support the addition of the unaltered reclaim fee schedule and the breeder permit. Without these two additions, we will continue to have large volumes of litters produced in this county and will be forced to kill innocent animals because there is not enough space for all the unwanted dogs and cats. Please approve this ordinance. These changes are way overdue in the county. Leela Duke of Morganton writes, I would like to express my support for the proposed animal ordinance of 2020. This document is the result of many long hours of work by many good people whose expertise, heart, and souls are invested in protecting the welfare of animals of Burke County. Under the leadership of the present Board of Commissioners, Burke County has grown exponentially in providing for our animal population. There have been so many positive changes, and as I know many others do, salute your diligence in seeing that these changes have been made thus far. I urge you to continue in this spirit and support the proposed animal ordinance of 2020. I would like to particularly express my support for the unaltered reclaim fee schedule and the breeder permit. These two additions will have a significant impact in reducing the large number of litters produced in this county, which can overflow our shelters, delete our resources, and result in the euthanization of healthy dogs and cats due to lack of space. Please continue what you have started and make these changes, which are long overdue. This will be a monumental achievement for Burke County that we can all be proud of. Thank you for your time and consideration. Next, this is from Lindsay Dugan. She says she's president of the National American Pit Bull Terrier Association, and the address I was provided was from Shallow Water, Texas. She writes, I'm writing in reference to the proposed ordinance amendments governing various animal control matters in Burke County, North Carolina. We have some members in your jurisdiction who are rightly concerned about the direction in which this language is headed. We at NAPBTA fully believe in being responsible and conscientious in the care and control of one's animals, and we do not advocate excessive breeding, but we have also found that good ideas do not necessarily make for good enforceable law. One point we would like to address is somewhat arbitrary restrictions upon dog breeders. The requirement that a female dog be given a year or a heat cycle between litters does not necessarily follow science or basic canine biology. Some experts believe that it is safer to breed a female every heat and then spay her when her breeding career is over. An additional concern is that the specific requirements to obtain a breeder license are not clearly defined, but appear to be determined by the Board of Commissioners. As ambassadors of a power breed, we also have a lot of members who use tethers as a means to keep their dogs responsible and safely confined. While we love a good trolley setup, that's not feasible for all dogs or all situations. Restrictions for the weight of the tethering is going to limit dog owners to use only light cables, which are notorious for failure. Does the requirement that the dog have access to food mean that the dog must be free-fed all day? Many dogs would eat themselves sick with constant access to food. There have been studies done which show that dogs show reduced neurotic behaviors on a tether versus in a kennel, and we believe that containment is best evaluated based on the needs of the individual animal as well as the needs of the owner. It is unclear why these proposed amendments are being moved to the floor so quickly, but we respectfully request that you give your community members more notice and a chance to respond. Speaking personally here, I understand what it's like to live in an area where people do not take proper care of their animals, allow them to run loose and breed at random, and so on. However, it is possible to be too heavy-handed in the application of these laws and thereby negatively impact responsible breeders and owners. So we urge you to work with the pet owners in your area to find measures that are both fair and enforceable. Thank you in advance for your consideration in this matter. Next, Elizabeth Huber writes, and she's from Collie Springs. I encourage you and want to express my support for the proposed animal ordinance of 2020. This ordinance contains some exceptional qualities to move Burke County in the right direction. Specifically, I support the addition of the unaltered reclaim fee schedule and the breeder permit. Without these two additions, we will continue to have large volumes of litters produced in the county and will be forced to kill innocent animals for space because they are unwanted. For the sake of the animals and the taxpayers, please approve this ordinance. The changes are way overdue in this county. Linda Garibaldi writes, there are so many positive changes will make things better for the animals and save lives. She has some concerns. In Article 3, Impoundment, Section 6-71, she would like to see the words shall be impounded by Animal Services Department by any means necessary replaced with the words shall be impounded by the Animal Services Department in a humane manner. By any means necessary implies there's a possibility for improper handling of animals and capturing them. In this same section, I agree that the line stating any owner of a non-spayed, unneutered dog or cat should be subject to an unaltered impoundment fee should be left in the ordinance as a means to encourage spaying and neutering dogs and cats, and the fine should be higher than the cost for spaying and neutering. In Section 6-115, cat colonies, people I have talked to who care of cats on their own properties have told me they are not going to register these cats. With the positive changes that have taken place in animal services and in the ordinance, however, some colony caretakers may feel comfortable registering their cats when they perform TNR that are not on private property. Thank you again for all the positive changes. Linda Garibaldi. Patty Selm writes, of Morganton writes, I encourage you and want to express my support for the proposed animal ordinance of 2020. This ordinance contains some exceptional qualities to move Burke County in the right direction. Specifically, I support the addition of the unaltered reclaim fee schedule and the breeder permit. Without these two additions, we will continue to have large volumes of litters produced in this county and will be forced to kill innocent animals for space and because they are unwanted. For the sake of the animals and the taxpayers, please approve this ordinance. These changes are way overdue in the county. Let's take another step into the 21st century in our care for animals and in our community. It's time. The next person is Sarah Carson, and the Carry On family. She writes, my family and I are new residents in Burke County. I recently moved to the outskirts of Morganton from New York, and I distinctly picked the location I did because I own dogs and I have for over 20 years. In July, before I decided to purchase my home, I checked out the animal laws and found them to be suitable and non-infringing on my personal and private rights as an American citizen. Today, my neighbor sent me the recommended amendments to Chapter 6 and completely blindsided me with this information. I am a bit taken back because the new proposed measures infringe upon at least 8 of my constitutional rights. As a dog owner, I feel as if I'm under attack by these proposed amendments. The proposals are draconian and tyrannical and violate personal and privacy protection laws. These measures also appear to directly target hunters who use dogs and or all other individuals who own working and bull breeds. This legislation is more likely to cause civil unrest due to its extreme invasive nature. I've attached a tethering study conducted by Cornell University and a table that represents the area in which a dog would have been responsibly tethered. The email goes on and references a couple of articles on spay and neuter, tethering, more spay and neutering. And then at the end, she writes, my family has opened a show kennel for 20 plus years, and we are devastated to see these draconian measures being proposed to an area we just decided to move to. Our family prays that you can oppose these amendments and enforce the animal laws you currently have. By doing so, you will refrain from attacking your residents' rights to privacy and personal property. I know many individuals in the area who do follow the law with their animals, and I would hate to see good, responsible breeders and dog owners in the area affected due to a few careless and reckless individuals. Again, as new residents, we ask you to please look at the resources and reconsider the proposed amendments in Chapter 6. And then David Bowditch writes, the laws of tethering should be left up to the owner's discretion. If the animal has adequate shelter and can get to food and water, the animal should be fine. Only if the opposite occurs should animal control step in. After all, it is that person's property. I believe that's all the comments I had, Mr. Chairman. Oh, I'm sorry, Jennifer, yeah. Either or.
You can come up and read it.
Thank you. I encourage you to bring our county forward and pass the proposed animal ordinance of 2020. This ordinance is solution focused without punishing most of us taxpayers who already provide humane treatment for our animals. These are not groundbreaking changes, but they do set a baseline for the minimum standards of care. It is clear that these proposed changes are data-driven. If you look at the above average kill rate that has plagued this county for years, you must see the absence of priority for spaying and neutering in our community. This can't continue. I personally am impressed with the clearer language and the concept that all pet owners can still make their own responsible decisions regarding their pet. This ordinance is all-inclusive. For the county and taxpayer, there are clear consequences for free-roaming, unaltered pets. For those who have lost the dog or had an accidental escape, there is no additional fine if it's altered, because that pet is not contributing to our county's problem of too many litters. The breeder permit is long overdue. Legitimate breeders remain true to a code of ethics regarding purity of the bloodline and the health of the offspring. The person who intentionally breeds for quick money, weans litters too soon, does not provide vet care, allows incestual breeding, and overbreeds the female will not appreciate this permit. Their actions are unethical, and I do not think it is a true representation of what you want our county to be. It is time to advocate for the welfare of these animals, lower the financial burden placed on the taxpayer, and allow people to make choices within best practice guidelines. Without these two additions, we will continue to have the large volumes of litters produced in the county, and we will be forced to kill innocent animals for space and because they are unwanted. Failure on another person's poor pet planning and choices does not constitute a financial impact on me. For the sake of the animals and the taxpayers, please approve this ordinance as it is written. I'm Jennifer Reese, and I live in Morganton. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Jennifer. Anyone else, Madam Clerk? All right, with that, I will close the public hearing. Gentlemen, what's the pleasure of the board?
Mr. Chairman, I think there's still a few things that we need to tweak on this ordinance, and I think if we could put it off until September 1st or something like that. But I definitely heard some things tonight that I feel that some of the population wasn't involved in this. I heard 2 or 3 people that weren't involved in this, and I just think we ought to. I don't think there's any hurry. Let's get it right when we do it, and let's address everybody's problems with this.
Thank you, Wayne.
Mr. Chairman, I do also want to commend our Animal Advisory Board and our staff for doing an excellent job. But having heard this flurry of activity over the last several days, I would like to make a motion involving this ordinance, but it would be somewhat amended from the motion that's the proposal that's before us. I'll be glad to do that if you're ready. Or
any other comments before I entertain this motion?
What is the motion, please, Jeff?
Okay, my motion would be that we adopt the ordinance 20-2004, amending Chapter 6, Animals of the Burke County Code of Ordinances, with the following exceptions and provision. That Article 1 in general, Section number 4, which deals with animal abuse and cruelty, specifically Section 3 dealing with chaining and tethering, prohibited. Also, with the exception of Article 3, impoundment, Section 6.73D, which has to do with the non-spayed, unneutered dog or cat. And then also Section 679, spaying and neutering breeder permit. I think these were the 3 areas that I heard most of the controversial comments about. And what my provision would be, that we ask the Animal Advisory Board to revisit these 3 sections and seek public comment and present a further recommendation on these particular sections in 3 months. That would allow us to approve the balance of the ordinance, which would help us move forward with the enforcement and all those things that we have already begun, and then allow us to address these sections that seem to be the most problematic at this time.
Mr. Chairman, does that let the people here, the 2 or 3 people that spoke tonight, does that give them time to offer input?
Yes, sir. That gives us 3 months. That will be the direction.
But they'll have a chance to offer input also.
That will be the direction to the advisory board, is to allow public comments and the public to present a recommendation to the advisory board, and they in turn come back to us with no less than 90 days, 3 months, and give their recommendation. So 3 months.
We haven't had a chance to look
3
at the
months.
whole thing. I'm sorry.
Don't
I would
interrupt.
ask that you
Don't
please
interrupt,
say
ma'am. You can't interrupt. You can't say anything, okay? I think 90 days is sufficient time for the advisory board to take public comments, open up to some of the people that were not aware of what was happening, to make sure that they get time to do their comments to the advisory board. Then the advisory board come back to us with their recommendations.
All right. That's fine.
Mr. Chairman, a comment and a couple of questions. I apologize to the group before, but Johnny so graciously let me borrow his glasses, but I don't see as good out of them as I do mine. But I did want to ask, now Kay says we have a new policy. When was that made available to us?
That was sent to you Saturday.
Saturday? So I'd already reviewed mine by then and had my comments, but I see some pretty big differences in there, and I need time myself to go through it to see what changed. But we were getting information this afternoon after 4 o'clock about this topic. Our rule says we should have everything within 48 hours, before 48 hours on this stuff, and I think we're just continue to bend the rules a little bit, because I wasn't aware of that. And I opened my email, I don't know, but anyhow, I think that anything that changes after we're mailed our package, each one of us need a telephone call saying there's a change coming in.
I will call you, I promise. Because those did come out with odd hours. I'm sorry that yours didn't come across your email.
Well, I wanted to note that too, that JR had a lot of good comments, and those comments need to be looked at too in this reevaluation, in my opinion. He spent a lot of time on that. I'm done, thank you.
Yes, sir. Any other comments? All right, we're back to Jeff. Do you want to make your motion?
Yes, sir. Motion as I stated it there. I'll be glad to restate it if need be.
Okay. The motion is that we adopt ordinance 2020-04, amending Chapter 6 Animals of the Burke County Code of Ordinance, with the exceptions of the 3 areas, one with regarding chaining and tethering being prohibited, Article 3, the impoundment section, Article 6.79, spaying and neutering and the breeder permits, and that we further advise the Animal Advisory Board and direct them to revisit these 3 sections, seeking public comment and presenting a recommendation to this board in no later than 3 months from today's date.
Does that cover what the 3 people wanted here?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. It certainly does.
All right.
Mr. Chairman,
Yes, ma'am.
just for clarification, did I hear you say that the impoundment section 6.73 is for section D only?
It's for what? I'm sorry.
Section D only?
Yeah, 6.73D, and I did not say D. I apologize. 6.73D. I had to put on my other glasses. and 6.79 spaying and neutering and breeder permitting that will address, I think, Eddie's, what he spoke about tonight also. And then we give them time to take some more public comments. Ladies and gentlemen, let me do a final closing comment before we vote. Some of you are over here and some of you are over here, and we're right here. This is tough. Okay? This is tough on us. You're not putting us in a position. The world has put us in this position right now. So we got to make a learned decision. And from day one, I said we were going to get this right. I don't know what right is yet. So we're making every effort. So I'm asking you to bear with this advisory committee, bear with us. We'll go some more time. We'll get more public comments. We will read those things. We'll make sure everybody gets them in plenty of time to read the comments, and then we'll make a decision for that. All right, gentlemen, you have the motion in front of you. All in favor signify by raising the right hand. All opposed? Madam Clerk, that passes 5-0. Thank you so very much. All right, moving on to item number 8. I'll let the room clear out just a little bit. Moving on is informal public comments. Madam Clerk, has anybody signed up? Just give me a yes right now or if you have.
Yes, Mr. Chairman, we have some in-person.
Okay. Just wait till the room clears just a little bit.
Mr. Chairman?
Yes.
Did we skip the rezoning?
Okay, I'm so sorry. We'll go to that in a minute. I was trying to catch my pages up. They're kind of running together here.
Yeah, I thought you said you had something.
Okay. I'm so sorry. Okay, let's move into let me get on the right page, number 2, community development, zoning map. Who's speaking? Okay. Zoning map amendment, ZMA 2020-02, a public hearing presented by Scott Carpenter. Scott?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Board, it's a pleasure. It seems like a good while since we've been together like this.
Yes, it has.
This request, staff has received a rezoning application from Michael Hevner on behalf of Brenda Alley to rezone a parcel of land totaling 14 acres. The request is to rezone the property from its current zoning of industrial to the residential 2 zoning district. In 2008 and 9, Burke County undertook a small area plan for the I-40 corridor. The property subject to this zoning is located approximately 1/2 mile from the exit 113 I-40 interchange, and it was also part of the I-40 corridor small area plan. The property address is 662 Perkins Road, Southeast Valdez, North Carolina, 28690. There is only one residence on the property. Could we go to the there we go. That's existing land use map. So there's only one residence on the property. Aside from the one residence, the property is mostly vacant land, which is partially wooded. There is also a large open area which may be used for agriculture. The parcel is located within a WS4 protected water supply watershed. Records indicate that the property can be served by public water and public sewer. The parcel has 940 linear feet of frontage along Perkins Road southeast. As far as the surrounding area goes, and you can see from the overhead there, the parcel is partially bordered on all 4 sides by the town of Valdez. On the previous map, if we go back to the previous map, sorry, you can see the town of Valdez is there in dark gray, and the yellow is indicating single family residential, and then there's one single wide mobile home there. So this is pretty much a rural area, and there is a railroad tracks right behind this to the north. The subject parcel and several others adjoining the parcel to the west are zoned industrial. Those parcels are within Burke County's planning jurisdiction. The town of Valdez also has residential zoning of R8 and R12 adjoining the parcels. The parcels to the west are Burke County Residential 2 district, and all the county zoning is within the I-40 overlay district. Could we bring up the zoning map? There we go. So there's the industrial, and you can see to the east is industrial. There's some R1, Burke County, down to the south of that, and R2 directly to the west of it. The current land use plan for Burke County is the 2016-2030 Blueprint Burke Strategic Land Use Plan. The parcel is located in the primary growth area. Primary growth areas are located within and directly adjacent to existing municipal corporate limits. Primary growth areas are areas of existing development and should have easy access to infrastructure, utilities, and transportation corridors such as Interstate 40 and US 70. These areas contain a mixture of residential, commercial, and industrial land uses. Higher density development can be anticipated in these areas. As far as conformity with the Burke County zoning ordinance, as stated earlier, the current zoning for this parcel is industrial. This is understandable since the parcel is relatively large at 14 acres, and the property has access to both public water and public sewer. These attributes, along with its close proximity to Interstate 40, make this parcel conducive to industrial development. The proposed residential R2 district would be appropriate for this area as well, since there is already existing R2 adjacent to the subject property. The R2 residential district is very similar to the R1 district, which is also adjacent or right south of the property. However, the district also allows multi-section mobile homes and multi-family housing options. Having public water and sewer available does make this parcel attractive to major subdivision development. However, that is not what's being requested by the applicant. The Planning Board met on June 25th, 2020 to hear this rezoning request. At the meeting, there was one member of the public present to speak. The citizen voiced his support for the proposed rezoning. His residence is located on property across from the street from the subject parcel, and he was always worried that a large industry may develop there and harm his land. The board voted 6-0 to recommend that this board approve ZMA 2020-02. A statement of plan consistency must be explicitly approved by the board at the time a zoning amendment decision is made. There should be no budgetary effect based on this action, and the county manager's recommendation is for approval.
Thank you, Scott. You've heard Scott's presentation, gentlemen. Any questions or comments? All right. Hearing none, at this time, Madam Clerk, I'll open the public hearing. Is there anyone here that wants to speak to zoning map amendment ZMA 2020-02?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I have a card from Michael Alexander.
Michael, please step forward there, sir.
Thank you. I live on 699 Perkins Road. On the map, it's the white area that's been incorporated into the town of Valdez. Our family's lived there for 30 years. It's primarily a very residential rural area with single-family homes on a fair amount of acreage. About 1/10 of a mile to the east on Perkins Road, we already have two large industrial facilities. We have Valdez Weavers on one side, and we have Paramount Ford on the other. Across the railroad tracks from the parcel that's being rezoned, there is also another large factory. And there are many times when these factories work at nighttime or the services are open in evening hours, and they do provide some noise and sometimes some light pollution. I like the area. It's been very peaceful. The neighbors know each other, help each other out. And I certainly, and I know that Mr. Hebner's been in the area for a long time as well, as sort of staying with the family. So I would be very much supporting the rezoning of this property to residential so that we can keep it as more of a family-friendly place and honestly not have to be bothered by one more large, industrial, venture popping up, which would certainly adversely affect my property and would probably adversely affect other adjacent properties as well. So I came in here to speak in favor of the rezoning to residential from industrial. And thank you for your time.
Thank you, Michael.
Mr. Hefner?
All right, with that being said, I will close the public hearing and ask the pleasure of the board on this matter.
Mr. Chairman, I move to adopt ordinance number 2020-05, amending the official Burke County zoning map as it relates to ZMA 2020-02 and related zoning consistency statement. The proposed zoning map amendment can be considered consistent with the purposes, goals, and objectives of the Burke County Strategic Land Use Plan and zoning ordinance, and is reasonable and in the public interest because the proposed residential 2 zoning is consistent with adjacent zoning and existing development within this area. There is an existing residential dwelling on the subject property which is currently inhabited, and there is public support for the parcel to be rezoned to residential district.
All right, you've heard the Vice Chair's motion. All in favor signify by raising the right hand. Madam Clerk, that passes 5-0. Thank you, Scott. Okay. Now I will move into the informal public comment section. Let me remind you, if you are here to speak to informal public comments, there is a time limit, 3 minutes. The clock will be running up on the screen, so if you are here to speak, please stay as close to that 3 minutes as possible. Madam Clerk?
Mr. Chairman, members of the board, we have one person signed up to speak in person, and then I have a couple of comments to read thereafter. Thomas V. Crosby II would like to speak with you.
Hey, I'll try to keep this short. I wrote a lot now that I know that there's 3 minutes. Honorable members of the board and honorable clerk to the board. Sirs and ma'am, I am writing tonight to express my support for the continued presence and preservation of the Morganton Confederate Monument. Commissioners, in recent months, there has been a campaign waged against our dear soldier who still stands watch. The detractors of the monument have made their views that the monument is a symbol of racism and division quite clear. And so tonight, I speak to make my views and those of who I represent as Second Lieutenant Commander of the Burke Tigers, Camp 2162, equally clear that this symbol, it serves as a symbol of honor and a beacon of the community, equally as clear. Commissioners, while I could speak tonight and list example after example that the Confederate cause was honorable and just, I will only provide one for the sake of brevity. The following is from the Richmond editorial, published August 2nd, 1864. Quote, "The whole cause of our resistance was and is the pretension and full determination of the Northern states to use their preponderance in the federal representation in order to govern the southern states for their profit. Slavery was the immediate cause carefully made so by them, but it was not the cause in thereof. The tariff, which would have been much more accurately represented, though it did not cover or exhaust the real cause of the quarrel. Yet neither tariffs nor slavery, nor both together, could have ever truly been called the cause of the secession and the war. We refuse to accept for a cause anything than that truly announced, namely the sovereign independence of our states." End quote. Commissioners, having provided the historical example I spoke of, I come to the heart of this letter, that being that I believe that this monument is and should continue to serve as a binding beacon of the community and its history. Commissioners, the first time I recognized the importance of the monument and its place as part of the community is when I actually took the time to read the inscription, "Our Confederate Soldiers," and all the names on the 4 marble tablets which surround it. Commissioners, the monument serves as a tribute to our past citizens, our past sons and fathers, and our boys who wore the gray, and whose deeds of bravery on far-off fields of battle continue to serve as proud examples of our state and our county's capacity for bravery and valor. But above all else, the monument serves as a proud tribute to their humanity, and serves as a proud testament to show that our past is not regulated to the sterile bondings of textbooks, nor, as our misguided detractors would have it, the dustbin of history. Rather, the monument's continued presence shows that we as a community are bound so strongly that not even the passing of over 150 years can weaken the bonds of our shared identity as proud and true North Carolinians and as proud and true Burke Countyans. Therefore, let the tribute which recognizes our sacred dead continue to stand in its proper place of prominence, not only out of respect for them and their memory, but also out of respect for our shared identity as a community, which is only strengthened by the memory of their brave deeds done on behalf of Morganton and all of Burke County. I have the honor to be your humble servant, Thomas Vincent Crosby II, resident of Burke County for the 17 years of my life, excluding the 3 years which I am attending at Lenoir-Rhyne University, and second Lieutenant Commander of the Burke Tigers, Sons of Confederate Veterans.
Thank you, sir. All right, Madam Clerk.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. This is from Bryant Lindsay, and you all should have a copy of it at your desk. I would like to thank you for the care and concern which you have addressed the suggestions from Chesterfield Ruitons regarding tabling the Chesterfield Elementary School portion of consent agenda item number 1 until February, even though you have declined to approve those suggestions. We have learned a great deal from the care and concern of your decision process in this regard. So I think all of us respect your individual and collective decisions. And this comment tonight is not an attempt to ask you to reverse those decisions. We understand that with limited resources, you must take great care not to overcommit Burke County government, particularly when possible outcomes, including cost and return on investment, have yet to be clearly defined. We will continue to bring ideas and concerns about Chesterfield to you. Any help and advice you can give us for Chesterfield, individually and collectively, in the next few months and years will be greatly appreciated. We know you care about Chesterfield. And parenthetically, we know that the Burke County Board of Education also cares about Chesterfield. Finally, Linda and I had hoped to be present tonight to thank you personally. Unfortunately, we have a contractor who says he can install our windows at our little Lake Junaluska cottage on this afternoon and evening, and only this afternoon and evening. So we have to be there to make sure we know it's done right. Respectfully, Bryant and Linda Lindsay. Diane Register of Morganton writes, last month we presented a petition regarding the Confederate flags on I-40 with more than 600 signatures. We are also holding a petition for the removal of the Confederate statue that has approximately 5,000 signatures. Recent events in Burke County, as well as the significant responses to these petitions, are strong indicators of our community's concern that racial inequality in our county needs to be acknowledged and addressed by our leaders. Please make the flags and the statute agenda items for action by the County Commission. We need to hear from you. Thank you, Diana Register. And that is all the comments that I have, Mr. Chairman.
All right, thank you, Madam Clerk. That will conclude our informal comment section. At this time, we'll move into our consent agenda. This time, I'll recognize County Manager Brian Steen.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. You have 15 items on your consent agenda. BOC resolution regarding surplus real property. Number 2, clerk reappointments to Industrial Revenue Board, Bond Board, I'm sorry. Number 3, clerk appointments to the Planning Board. Number 4, clerk appointments to Regional Aging Advisory Committee. Number 5, clerk resolution amending the BOC 2020 meeting schedule. Number 6, General Services, contract with U.S. Tire and Recycling Partners, LP. Item 7, IT, reclassification of 911 IT Manager to 911 System Administrator. Item 8, JCPC, appointments to seats number 2 and 4. Item 9, Sheriff Law Enforcement Legal Consultants. Item 10, Sheriff purchase of narcotics vehicles using restricted funds. Item 11, Sheriff request to reinstate part-time background investigator position. Item 12, Tax Department, tax collection report for July 2020. Item 13, Tax Department, release refund report for July 2020. Item 14, Tax Department, collections annual settlement report for 2019-2020. And item 15, Tax Department, order to collect 2020 taxes. This concludes your consent agenda.
All right, gentlemen, you've heard the consent agenda. The chair will entertain a motion.
Move it be approved, Mr. Chairman.
All right, you've heard Commissioner Britton's motion. All in favor signify by raising the right hand. Madam Clerk, that'd be 5-0. Moving on to item number 10, is our items for decision. Our first item is an appointment to the Department of Social Services Board, and that will be presented by Madam Clerk. Okay?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, members of the board. The County Commissioners appoints 2 members to the 5-member Board of Social Services. Seat number 1 was occupied by Lisa Dean, whose term ended June 30th. Ms. Dean is not seeking reappointment. You have 3 applications on file for your consideration: Nancy Wood, Jacqueline McDowell, or Ann Hudson. And again, the term is a 3-year term ending June 30th, 2023 for seat 1.
All right, questions or comments for Kay on this appointment? All right, it's a pleasure of the board.
Mr. Chairman, I move to appoint Nancy Wood to the Board of Services, seat number 1, for the remainder of the 3-year term ending June 30th, 2023.
All right, have a nomination for Nancy Wood. Are there any others? Hearing none, we'll close the nominations, and the motion would be to appoint Nancy Wood to the Board of Social Services, seat 1, for the remainder of the 3-year term ending June 30th, 2023. All in favor signify by raising the right hands. Madam Clerk, that'd be 5-0. All right, moving on to item number 2, concerning the courthouse wall repair and approval of modifications to the amended lease agreement, presented by Brian Steen, County Manager. Brian?
Thank you, gentlemen. You may remember in our pre-agenda, we had information our colleagues from the city presented to us, and they estimated the total wall repairs that they were looking at would total around $75,000. However, there is one section that covers or presents itself on 2 streets here, there at the courthouse, that they asked us to help participate in a 50-50 anticipated split, with the total repairs being about $30,000, and they're asking us for $15,000 to help with those repairs. And I believe we had discussion about any changes to the lease amendment also.
All right, any additional questions or comments for Brian?
Mr. Chairman, I have a question.
Yes, sir.
JR, since we're doing repair work on both courthouses, don't we need to insert the word "the old courthouse" there to identify, to more properly identify the property?
Well, the amendment refers back to the lease agreement, and the lease agreement.
Can't hear you.
The amendment refers back to the lease agreement, and the original lease agreement references the old courthouse square, along with a legal description. So I think we're covered there.
Other questions or comments?
Mr. Chairman, and JR, maybe you can answer this. Has the city of Morganton approved the lease agreement?
Yes, they have. At their last meeting, they approved it, and we have a copy with their signatures.
Thank you.
All right, any other questions or comments? All right, Chair, I'll entertain a motion.
Here I move to appropriate up to $15,000 of general fund balance for repair of the rock wall around the courthouse square, and approve the aforementioned modifications to the lease amendment approved in June 2020.
All right, gentlemen, you heard Commissioner Britton's motion. All in favor signify by raising the right hand. Madam Clerk, that'd be 5-0. Thank you so very much. We'll move into our reports and comments section. Let's start up here, if we will. Wayne?
No comment.
Maynard?
None except to acknowledge to you that the thank you card I sent for the wonderful basket of flowers or plant that you sent me. I found out last week that it never did make it. We switched servers, and somehow or another there's about 20 emails got lost in the email, and that was one of them. So I will thank you personally tonight. That was very thoughtful, And my wife and I are still enjoying it. So thank you.
So you are losing emails?
Well, the last little while, yes.
Okay. Have you got it fixed? Is a good question.
Yes.
Right.
And very feasible, but we did get it fixed.
Okay. All right, anything else?
No.
Okay. Vice Chair? Madam Clerk, any personal comments? Okay, Mr. County Manager, any personal comments?
No, sir, thank you.
Mr. County Attorney?
Yes, sir.
Make them short.
Since the last meeting of commissioners on July 21st, I wanted to bring commissioners up to date on work I have done on several items. First of all, I have worked with Brock Hall and the county manager concerning a dispute that the county has with a supplier for the county's 911 HyperReach services. And we hope to reach a conclusion on that. I met with a working group interested in building cabins at the Fauna Flora County Park, and I am currently in the process of preparing a prototype lease to bring before the commissioners. I redrafted the Courthouse Square lease amendment agreement between the county and the city of Morganton that you approved tonight to reflect changes agreed to at the pre-agenda meeting. I have revised the proposed changes to the county animal ordinance to reflect changes in enforcement from the Burke County Sheriff's Department to the Animal Services Department, with other changes, additions, and corrections made. I subsequently reviewed a later draft of the proposed ordinance with further changes and corrections. I assisted the Burke County Sheriff's Office with several public records requests for the Sheriff's Department. I researched for Sheriff Wisnett the ability to pull home addresses from the GIS public access system. I researched utility payment plans after the COVID restrictions expired and helped come up with language for the utility customer statement. I attended the summer conference of county attorneys that was held virtually this year via Zoom, held in 2 morning sessions in July. I participated in an opioid litigation local council Zoom meeting where we heard from both the NCACC counsel, Paige Worsham and Amy Basin, as well as from our regional counsel concerning the status of negotiations with the Attorney General's office and upcoming trial dates. I reviewed a subpoena issued to the Burke County Health Department by the American Civil Liberties Union in a case entitled NAACP versus Cooper, which the Health Department is not a party to, but which they're asking for certain information from county health departments in counties where the state maintains prisons. I have reviewed the health department contract with Catawba Valley Staffing and preparing a list of items for change of correction on that, and I have reviewed the health department contract to provide rapid COVID antigen testing with Quidel Corporation. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. County Attorney. Gentlemen, if we can pull this together, after many, many years, the Eckerd Creek Pump Station is completed. Beautiful, beautiful facility. And what we're trying to do is do some kind of photo op on August the 25th at 9:00 a.m. Please check your emails. We're going to try to pull that together, see if we can do something to highlight what that station down there that's been long awaited. Also, on September the 1st at 9:00 a.m., if we can also pull together, that's the day of our pre-agenda, we want to meet with BDI at the Burke Business Park. That will be the groundbreaking of the new water tower that's been long awaited, getting that water tower up there and finally seeing some water in there. So put those 2 dates aside and please check your emails for that. For those that are watching us on YouTube, please like us on Facebook. I would remind you that if you will, please don't litter in Burke County and pick up a piece of trash if you can. Please remember that the census is still going on. We have progressed somewhat. We're still not where we need to be, but the census is still out there. And again, please have your pet spay or neutered. At this time, I want to recognize the county manager.
Mr. Chairman, I didn't remember if you wanted to mention anything about the hot spots that the county is looking to assist the school systems with.
Yes, sir. I was going to be my last thing. Okay, thank you. With the advent of us receiving some COVID money and with the school board now, I think, has finalized how they want to open their schools back up, it is our understanding that there is only probably, there'll be a number of children that will have no access to Wi-Fi in this county to do their homework. The school has been privileged to have given to them in some manner, shape, or form around 200 and some Wi-Fi hotspots that has been placed across the county itself. Those 200 and some are not adequate to do what needs to be done, but with the COVID money that has been given to the county, we are in a position now that we want to supply around 750 new hotspots for the school for our children. It's just imperative that these kids be able to get to a Wi-Fi so they won't have to drive to a parking lot somewhere, which I can't agree with. We've got to put these hotspots in homes. We've got to get them on buses close to homes where our children in this county can have some access to the Wi-Fi. So the 750 that we can supply, along with the 200, pushes us well over 900, close to 1,000 hotspots. And let's pray that that will suffice for our children in the county so that they will have some access to that. As we move into September, my plans is to have our pre-agenda meeting by Zoom, and then our regular meeting right now is scheduled for in-person again. So that's our September schedule. So, Madam Clerk, let's look at vacancy announcements.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, members of the board, citizens. We have the following opportunities for citizens to get involved in county activities: the Adult Care and Nursing Home Community Advisory Committees, Council on Aging, Regional Aging Advisory Committee, Juvenile Crime Prevention Council, City of Morganton Board of Adjustment and Planning Board for the ETJ. Next slide. Voluntary Agriculture Board, Burke County Board of Adjustment and Planning Board, Burke Senior Center Advisory Council, and the Recreation Commission.
All right, thank you, Madam Clerk. Brian, I don't think we have a need for a closed session, do we?
No, sir.
Okay, good. With that, no closed session in mind, we will entertain a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
All right, we stand adjourned.